Hello YouTube and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres again, and today's video is dedicated to the Tier 2 French destroyer, the Enseigne Gabolde. I hope I'm pronouncing that regularly because that's about the only time you're really going to hear me try to even pronounce it at all. I will say that this is a nice little ship. She's definitely got a good chunk of power behind her under the right circumstances. And, well, I've definitely enjoyed playing through a few matches with her, trying to unlock the first few tiers of the French destroyer line. To go over her statistics briefly, as a destroyer, she receives 7,000 hit points as her A hull. For her B hull, she goes up to 7,600 hit points. For her main battery, she has 3 10-centimeter guns, which have a range of 8.9 kilometers with the stock range module, and that goes out to 9.8 kilometers with the upgraded range module. This also is not taking into account any captain skills like advanced firing training or basic firing training. Her main battery reloads in 4.8 seconds. They have a 9-second 180-degree rotation, have a 6% chance of catching fire on target with 88-meter dispersion. High explosive shells do 1,400 damage, and armor-piercing shells do 1,600 damage. Her torpedoes are rather simple and definitely in line with Tier 2 destroyers. She has 2 double torpedoes with a 7-kilometer range with a speed of 57 knots. They reload in 35 seconds, and they do 7,433 damage. As far as her maneuverability, she is relatively quick, but not the fastest, at 32.6 knots. And her phenomenal 20% French speed boost does push her, however, up to 39.1 knots. She has a 450-meter turning circle, and her rudder shifts in 2 seconds for both hulls. Her concealment is 5.8 kilometers on the surface and 2.1 kilometers from the air, with the standard assured detection range of 2 kilometers, and that is also her smoke detection range. Now, as I was saying, the few matches that I've done in this ship, she was definitely a nice little powerhouse, and primarily I have to come out and say that because of the simple fact that she is a French destroyer. She does not have the smoke generator consumable, which pushes her into a far more aggressive role. Most of the French destroyers, so far as I have seen, are definitely not ships that you want to take into passive combat roles. They are very, very good in straight-up gun duels with other ships, and their torpedo systems, as long as they are loaded, can definitely even the balance even further. As you can see, this first match wasn't too stellar, but I definitely held my own. 10,000 damage with the main battery, 16,000 damage with torpedoes, and when you consider that this was a equal tier match with Tier 2 ships, that's actually fairly respectable. I also tanked a potential of 81,500 damage, and I really didn't take an incredible amount of damage in turn. I only took 1,300 damage. Now, coming down to the profits end, I did lose a little over 25,000 credits, but that's because I am running premium consumables and camouflage. As far as everything else goes, if I had not been running all of those, I probably would have turned a nice tidy little profit with a 40,000 credit actual gain, or gross gain, for the match as a whole. Coming back to what I was saying though, these French destroyers, you definitely want to play them more aggressively, just because you don't have the smoke to allow them to play passive. You're doing a lot of moving around, you're doing a lot of ducking and covering behind islands, and I mean, as long as you're detected, you may as well just keep your guns hot, because that's basically what these destroyers are good at. They are relatively nimble, they're meant to dodge incoming fire, so just, at least as far as I'm concerned, keep your guns hot, keep moving, keep kicking your rudder from one side to the other so that you're zigzagging, not following the exact same course from point to point, and just otherwise give the enemy hell. And the one thing I will say is that while these guns may be a little bit underpowered for Tier 2 at only 100 millimeters, they are definitely nice and capable of doing reasonable damage to lightly armored targets like other destroyers. But again, what you're primarily working on with the EG is her torpedoes, those nice fast-loading double torpedo launchers. Again, they reload in 35 seconds, so you can drop on one target, kind of get around it, and then by the time you're ready to line up on another target, those torpedoes are loaded and ready to go again. And these torpedoes, you do have enough of them where it may not be enough to completely destroy a Tier 2 battleship, but it will definitely leave them hurting quite substantially. And that is something that I believe is going to be showcased in this little engagement right here with the South Carolina and the Kawachi. I could be wrong. It has been a couple of days since I had these matches at least, so I'm not 100% on some of my results. Okay, torps out on the South Carolina. Not full marks, but definitely enough to leave it hurting. Again, left it with about 10,000 points worth of damage, or 10,000 hit points, and it is healing up. But I am still going to try to keep chunking away, and I'm also going to be taking full advantage of getting my range out there, dodging, weaving, such as it is, and just trying to get back around until my torpedoes are reloaded so that I can just get more out on her. And of course, I'm also hoping to line up some shots on the Kawachi as well with torpedoes, be that as it may. And unfortunately, if I recall correctly, again, these torpedoes don't really do anything to the South Carolina. Yeah, they just kind of go sailing right on past her. But I do believe, on the other hand, that at least one... nope, scratch that. Nothing even found its mark on the Kawachi either. So, yeah. But, again, torpedoes are already reloaded, so I can go ahead and line up on the South Carolina again. I know it's only going to take one torp to get the South Carolina down, so I reset for the Kawachi for the second set of torpedoes. And this strike is going to be much more successful than the second run. Sadly, the second set of torpedoes... Okay, it only partially missed the Kawachi, but, I mean, I did a reasonable chunk of damage, and I even managed to start flooding it. Its damage control is down, as evidenced by the fact that there are a couple of fires burning on her. And my torpedoes are back up yet again to finish her off. Unfortunately, I do get finished off myself, and at least I traded, what, 2 battleships for my efforts? Overall, managing 55,000 damage overall for the match. Which, for a Tier 2 destroyer, I don't care who you are, that's very respectable. Especially taking on 2 battleships in close succession. Now, granted, I also didn't have any cruisers that were engaging me at the time, but ultimately speaking, it definitely could have gone a lot worse. Of course, now skipping ahead to the battle results from this match, you can see I did fairly respectable, 54,454 damage. The number of main battery hits was 64, 8 torpedo hits as well, 2 kills, 4 fires, 4 floods, 5 defense ribbons even. 41,000 credits earned, 453 EXP, and 29 free EXP. And considering the previous match, these are actually very respectable numbers, even by comparison to where I was before. So, very good, solid earnings, especially having been up-tiered to Tier 3. Unfortunately, I did skip back to port there for a second, but considering this was a direct recording, I do tend to do that on occasion if I'm just going back and forth between matches, and sometimes I just forget to, if I am recording, sometimes I just forget to actually keep going through the details. 251 base EXP for the match, so second on the team. I wasn't top of the team, but even still, I am looking at respectable numbers. 318,000 potential damage tanked, 1,800 damage from spotting, 12,000 damage done by my main battery, 37,003 done by torpedoes, and another 5,000 between fires and floods. And unfortunately, the ship did absorb full damage with 7,001 points taken, but all things considered, again, I think I definitely did my part. I did almost full damage to 2 enemy battleships, and the one enemy destroyer that I took shots at also took a healthy chunk of damage from me. As far as the net earnings for the match, unfortunately I did lose 29,000 credits almost, but again, this is because I was running premium consumables and a camouflage, so unfortunately those did need to be resupplied. If I had not spent those credits, I probably would have turned away a nice tidy little profit again. And the commander earned 516 EXP for the match, which again, very respectable for a Tier 2 battle. And as you've seen by now, the one thing that you do not want to do, at least in my experience so far with these French destroyers, is you don't want to play too passively. You kind of want to push into the boundaries where, yeah, okay, dodging fire is a little bit trickier, even if you do have a nice nimble ship. But the thing is, they are small, they are destroyers, they are hard to hit. Enemy dispersion does play a huge factor when trying to hit something that's moving as fast and is as small as a destroyer. And it can just really, you can really pester larger ships very easily. Even cruisers, I've noticed, in my case, have just a lot of trouble trying to actually hit me as long as I am in and maneuvering properly. You really do not want to spend too long going in straight lines, especially when you are in, notably taking fire from targets. So there is that to have in the back of your mind, is just don't sit still. Don't keep moving in a straight line. You definitely want to keep ducking, weaving, twisting, turning, and whatever else needs to be done to avoid taking too much damage from enemy ships. For those of you who are looking into the French line, that is something that you are definitely going to need to know moving forward. For those of you who have already played some of the French ships up to and including, say, the Le Terrible at Tier 8, this is probably nothing new to you. Just more of the same, and just reinforcing kind of what you should already know about the French destroyer line as it is. Again, torpedoes reload nice and quick. She has a few good, nice damaging guns. Unfortunately, not quite as good as the much larger caliber destroyer guns that she will be getting, or that the higher tier French ships get. But, I mean, at least they are adequate for Tier 2. You're not expected to do incredible amounts of damage, and have to with these guns. They are definitely workable against the ships that you're going up against. Just don't expect them to be too effective from the point of view of landing penetrating hits in some cases. Lord knows you're going to see lots of non-penetrations and shatters on battleships especially. To that end, the one thing that I am going to say is that for somebody who's just starting the game and getting into destroyers, you definitely want to hold off and get more experience at the game first before you try getting into the French destroyers. Just because you want to have a much better working idea, working understanding of what destroyers are capable of, what destroyers do, and how they operate best. On top of the fact that, again, the French destroyer line operates with dramatic differences relative to the other destroyer classes in the game. All of the other destroyers have the smoke consumable that they can fall back on if things start getting a little too tight. They can break they can break line of sight with the smoke screen, and they can just get out of dodge or get to cover, get themselves resituated, get themselves kind of refocused, and then decide to re-engage. Here, unless you have somebody else to smoke you up, you're really gonna be hurting if you're not too sure of what you're doing. Again, you're gonna have to rely a lot more on basically your own maneuverability and your, dare I say, nerves of steel to get things done. Final match, 56,000 damage done almost, 42,500 credits earned, 434 EXP, and a nice, healthy little chunk of free EXP, and unfortunately I did skip back into the ports section there again. 41 main battery hits, 9 torpedo hits, 2 kills, 2 floods. Again, for a Tier 2 destroyer, these are at least reasonably respectable numbers. So definitely not going to complain too much about that. 241 base EXP for Tier 2, which, I mean, that's a good, strong, solid top of the team. 16,000 damage done to the Chester, 12,000 to the Nassau, 25,000 damage almost to the Mikasa, and a couple of other little pittance worth of damage to the enemy wicks in the V-25. 7,700 damage done by the main battery, 48,000 damage done with torpedoes. 115,000 potential damage tanked, 1,002 spotting damage, and ship directly absorbed only about 2,300 damage. So that's one of the other things I suppose I should mention about the maneuverability of the French destroyers is you basically just kind of want to, you don't want to keep too much distance, but you definitely want to be the hardest target to hit where other ships really just kind of start engaging other things because they want to start doing damage. So that is another thing to keep in mind. You want to be that pesky little thing that they can't hit, but that they really wish they could. 27,000 credits earned or lost net for the match, and 494 EXP earned for the commander. Anyway, that is the Enseigne Gabolde, the, okay, I guess I did try to pronounce it again, oh well. The Tier 2 French tech line destroyer, and again, as far as from an experienced player standpoint, if you are looking at getting into the French destroyers, this is definitely a good starting point, and I think you will definitely enjoy working with her as long as you can understand her playstyle is very different from that of other destroyers. Anyway, I suppose I shall go ahead and let you all go at this point. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you are new to my channel, and I hope to catch you all again next time. Y'all take care, stay safe, have a good one, happy hunting, folks.